Hello and welcome to the Modern Fairy Sightings Podcast, where we listen to people's fairy encounters. But take heed, we're not talking about winged Tinkerbells here. These are real fairies, real encounters that took people like you and I by surprise. Stay a while and hear their stories. My name is Jo Hickey Hall, and I'm a folklore researcher. This podcast is of course free, but to ensure it continues, it does require your support. If you can support the show and its continued research, there are a number of tiers to choose from at patreon.com/the Modern Fairy Sightings Podcast. We have a Discord private discussion group and a monthly live chat, plus regular personal updates behind the scenes. With your support, I hope to dedicate more time to this research and producing fortnightly episodes. Alternatively, you can really help support by subscribing, rating and sharing your favourite episodes with your friends. Thanks. Hello dear listener, thanks for being here. This week marked 10,000 downloads so far since this podcast was launched in November 2020. It feels like a massive milestone, and it wouldn't exist without my courageous, open-hearted guests' commitment to sharing their stories, or without you being here to listen and enjoy. To share these stories with you is a huge honour for me. My ever grateful thanks to the Curious Crew, a wonderful group of people who keep this boat afloat and support the Modern Fairy Sightings project so generously. We're gearing up for our next chat on 7th of September, and maybe one or two of you may join us there too. We're at patreon.com/the Modern Fairy Sightings Podcast. I'm hoping to reach a point where I can dedicate 2 days a week to this around my day job. At the moment, I'm creating these at silly hours of the night and seizing time here and there while our toddler sleeps. I love what I do, and I'm entirely dedicated to this project, which, as I've always said, has its own momentum. As long as there is energy behind this and it feels right, I will continue. This episode centres on an experience which invoked a sense of longing. There are many stories in folklore of those who visited fairyland never to return, and those that did often pined away afterwards. Some stories speak of a deep sense of longing that draws folk to the precipice of no return before something snaps them out of a trance. Often they are drawn in by strange otherworldly music, and it was this form of enchantment that our guest experienced during lockdown last year. The sounds she heard resulted in a sense of longing which she cannot quite describe in terms of the material world. The whole encounter seemed to usher a sense of urgency. For now, just listen and honour the fact that she has shared this intimate experience with us. There may be more of you out there that needed to hear this. Some of you may be able to offer your thoughts. There's a bonus episode on Patreon where I offer my own advice, though it's always entirely up to each individual to decide what to do. Our guest also shares some further stories of the strange. As always, please note that these are not fairy tales and the content isn't suitable for children. Some adult listeners may find this particular episode upsetting or frightening, so please avoid if you are sensitive to creepy content or matters of the occult. Thanks. I'll be back at the end for a quick chat. Time to renovate.
It was around last year during the height of the pandemic. I was just upstairs in my daughter's room. We're just in a basic 2 up, 2 down house. You know, it's a terrace street, and it was definitely coming into nighttime, maybe even twilight, going into that time. And I heard this really loud music coming from outside, and I was like, "Who's playing that music? Like, if anybody's actually listening to this, they'd be up out of their doors going, who's playing that music?" The football stadium's not too far away, so I know what loud music sounds like when it's, you know, because we can hear maybe matches or we can see the floodlights, so I know what loud noise sounds like from distances. But this was so loud, and I said to my partner at the time, I said, "Can you hear that music? Like, where's that coming from? It's so loud." Nobody else was like outside their window looking out to see where this comes from, and he turned around and said to me, "What music?" And I was like, how can you not hear that? Would you listen? Just, how are you not hearing that? And he was like, I cannot hear a thing. What are you talking about? So I was standing there and he was away. He went away because he was just like, she's gone nuts again. And I was just standing there listening to this music, and I could not place it where it was coming from, and I couldn't even hear the melody, but it was so loud. Not that I couldn't hear the melody, but I couldn't place it. I couldn't grasp the melody, what was happening, or well, this song. I could not at all. So so that happened, and then a couple of days later, I started getting this really bad. All I can say is longing, like this emotional longing, and I was like, "What is going on?" And then it started getting worse, and in about 3 days, over 3 days, it started getting worse, and I was like, it was a longing. And then I realized that to go with him, because every time I had this longing, I was remembering the music, not remembering the music as in I knew what notes were being played, but I was remembering not even the feeling, but anyway, I was remembering the music, and then I realized like it was a longing to go with him. And over the course of about 6 months to a year, that longing got so much more intense. It was happening every month. Wow. Over the course of about 3 days, and it actually became physically painful. The longing, it was like it was taking over my whole body.
Oh my goodness!
And I was like, this is and I could tell when it was coming on, because I could feel it. It would get so intense, and then it would sort of like dissipate and just disappear. But every time it came on, the intensity was getting worse and worse and worse, until the longing just took over my whole body and was becoming physically painful. And I came to a head one day. I was upstairs. I was lying in bed because I couldn't. It was the whole, like my whole body was pain with this longing to go with him. And I just said to myself, right, I'll go with you whenever I've had a long and healthy life and I'm in my grave. And the music then the pain just kind of stopped.
Wow.
Yeah. The other thing was that at one point when it was happening, I was upstairs in the same room looking out the back, and I was staring outside, and I got lost time. I lost time. I was just staring outside, like it was almost like the same kind of day where it was coming into twilight, and it was same kind of sort of sun. It wasn't too long after it happened, but apparently I was upstairs for about 2 hours. It felt like I was upstairs for about 5 minutes. Wow. Just staring out the window. Yeah. Now, what I found out is that as the crow flies from my house, literally not even 50 seconds, because it would take me 50 seconds to get from here to the place in the car. So as the crow flies, it must be about 30 seconds at most. There's a house, the street's called Fairy Lane.
Oh, that's great.
Outside one of the Victorian houses is a Bronze Age mound that used to have a hollow oak tree on top, and it's called Fairy Mound. And Bronze Age burial mound, that has a Victorian house built beside it, basically in the grounds itself. It's like it's a small garden.
Yeah.
And it's very unusual, to have that kind of almost as if a Victorian person has wanted it for a folly. It's not like it's not in a field or anything like that. It's in somebody's garden.
Yeah.
And what I found out about it was that there is fairy folklore attached to it. What I found online basically was that they used to give silver pennies to the industrious. Basically, that's lifted from the quote, and they used to give like love charms to like young women.
Who did?
That's the fairies in this fairy mound.
Okay.
But also during the last plague that happened in Wrexham, there was a load of bodies buried in the same field.
Oh no.
And if you think about the timing of me hearing that last year during the middle of the pandemic.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Wow, so this was last year that it happened.
Yeah. So, yeah, do you think I'm mad?
No, not at all. And having those mounds around residential areas is super common, by the way. It reminds me of where my husband's from. There are a mound up there, and interestingly, that's called May Lane.
Oh, interesting.
Right, and so I reckon that harks from some kind of maybe Beltane celebrations that took place around there. But it's just sort of cordoned off on the corner in the middle of a massive load of residential streets. You
Yeah.
you know, if you didn't know it was there, you would have never find it, kind of thing. Um, so, and I know that there were more, and they ended up in people's back gardens, and a lot of people probably don't even know that they were there because a lot of them would just have been flattened out and built
Yeah.
upon.
Yeah, I know there's
Um,
one that an old person's home has been built upon. I've been into, I don't know if you know Megalithmania. I've got
oh
the
yeah,
website over
yeah, it's
there.
a
Yeah,
great one. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. There's a few around the place. There's one not even again about half a minute, or not even half a minute, about a minute from where I am now. I haven't been to see it, but there's a couple of cairns in somebody's field.
Mm,
There is a lot. There is quite a lot around the
yeah.
place.
So with the one in Victorian House Garden, do you think you could get permission to just go and visit it? Would you think you could like contact
The owner of the
owners?
house.
Yeah.
Well, you can actually see it if you look over the fence, and it's right up against one of the walls.
Mm,
Somebody has actually taken pictures of it and
mhm,
posted online.
mm,
As you'll see, like if you go to see it, you'll see it is just like it's a big garden, but it's for it in the middle of a town, but it's small, you
mm,
know.
mm.
Um, yeah. So if I wanted to go and visit, I'd probably just stand outside and wait till somebody comes in out of the house and annoy them, like. Or
But
I just put some honey and milk over the fence, you know.
well, you could do that. You do what feels right, really. What kind of year, what time of year was it when you had that initial?
I think it was summer. I think.
Mm,
I think, and it kind of ties into what I've been reading about it as well.
okay.
Because time just all like last year's just been all higgledy
Oh,
piggledy,
of
like there's no
course.
those, yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure because I remember it kind of being sunny and
Mm,
warm. So I can only think that it would have been around about summertime.
I mean, it
Um,
last year was, oh, I don't know what it was like where you are, but certainly here it was warm and sunny for, from sort of like, was it April right through, really?
yeah,
Um,
this is why I can't really remember because it's just time has just meant nothing at the minute, like.
I know it's just been a blur, hasn't it? It's very hard to pinpoint. Was it around when you were saying that you were getting those yearnings? Did it fall around the same time of the month, and did that fall with your cycle in any way, or the moon cycle?
Um, I didn't actually check the moon cycle because last year I was just I kept I haven't done anything like that in years, to be fair.
Mm.
But according to my cycle, my own cycle is pretty messed up because I'm on like the implant in my arm.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
So it just messes up your cycle, you know. So
Yeah.
you don't really know when it's going to come on or not. But it did seem to happen around about middle to the end of the month, every month.
Mm.
Um, I couldn't put up an exact date on it, unfortunately. Yeah, the only thing that kind of helped me around about that time was reading other people's folklore stories
Mm.
and
Yeah.
reading things like the I know it sounds silly, like, but the elves from Tolkien and stuff.
Yeah.
That's the only kind of thing that would have helped. It was like trying to keep my mind on it, and I was almost like trying to fight it by trying to understand what it is
Yeah, of
a bit
course.
better. So it gave me a kind of like a feeling of stability with it, being able to like hold it without giving into it. But I will be honest, I did after like it went away and I realized what I said to them. I actually got scared. It was like they could have my immortal soul now
I
for the
think that
rest of eternity.
I can understand why, you would feel frightened about that. But I think that there are things that you could do in order to take your own power back, as it were, over that, or your own sense of, if you're feeling like you kind of agreed to something or gave something that you regret, you can absolutely perform a ritual or a series of rituals to to take back that sense of power over the situation, over your own situation. It depends on how you were feeling at that time. Do you feel like this was something that felt you could really trust and that you loved, or was it something you felt pushed into because of fear? What was the feeling behind it?
I kind of feel like I was coerced into it because it was just so painful.
Mm.
So I do think that in a way that would probably be because do have what I've been reading anyway, they do have a sense of fair play. So at times I must say that. But this definitely wasn't a sense of fair play to be coerced into.
No.
You know, but then again, you know, I've been reading so many folklore stories that at times it almost seems like they do like tricking people in that way sometimes, you know.
Well,
It's difficult. I mean, to me, it's like I'm not too sure because the fairies that are associated with that mound seem to be nice fairies, to put it in a way, you know, that give silver pennies and stuff, and but you know, then to be associated with, you know, the plague death and stuff as well, it's not, it doesn't sit 100% with me of what's happening.
No,
you know?
But then it was humans that decided to put the plague victims there. And I would imagine it's because an open space for them to place them in. I don't know what the landscape around there was like at the time.
Yes, yeah.
Well, whereabouts in the body was it paining you?
It started in sort of like the heart area, but then it just moved, you know, every month it just seemed to grow and grow and grow until it actually became physically painful.
But physically painful in where and what sort of symptom of pain?
It's hard to describe. Like I was upstairs and it wasn't even like, you know, whenever you're carrying like a burden about for years and it becomes heavier and heavier and you get anxious and, you know, but then that anxiety and that depression seems to like affect you physically.
Yeah.
And people say that they're in physical pain. It was like an intense version of that.
Right.
The only respite I had from it whenever when it was happening was me saying that to myself, you know, it does only last for a few days. It's not going to last for ages. But then at the last one, it was just so physically painful. Yeah, that's all I can describe it as, is whenever you've got a massive burden to carry, and you're depressed and anxious. Whenever, you know, those type of feelings become like a physical pain. That's what it's like. But it only happened like a few days out of every month.
So would it be that your body was sensitive to touch, or that you were aching? Or
aching is more of a thing, but it wouldn't be like a, you know, it wouldn't be like a fibromyalgia ache. It wouldn't be like it was. Yeah, it was more like it stemmed from an emotional ache.
Yeah.
That then grew into a physical ache. You know.
You could try drawing it if you can. Don't think about what that might look like beforehand, but just if you can get some time to yourself and just get yourself into a meditative state in any way that is right for you. Know that you're not going to be disturbed, and just bring some colours with you and just begin to draw it, a manifestation of what that looks and feels like to you. Do you have a sense of what colour it would be? I know that sounds like a silly question, but just a gut feeling.
I want to say yellow, which is a strange one, very strange one.
Well, yeah, I mean, yellow is all about power and control. But you felt it in your heart. So that's really interesting. What's your relationship with music? And what did the music sound like to you? What kind of music was it?
I can't place it at all. I couldn't even grasp the melody. Like every time I heard a note and trying to figure out what song it was or figure out, you know, what even type of music it was almost like it would change, and then it would be something, you know, it would be not like something, it's not as if it was going from rock to country to folk music, you know, it wasn't like that. It was, you know, when you're at a festival and you hear music in the distance.
And it's all blending in together.
Yeah. Or, you know, you can hear it being carried by the echoes and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
It was kind of like that, but I still, I couldn't place, because sometimes when you're at a festival, you can still place the music, what type of music it is, or even what song it is, if you know the song. Could not place the type of music, could not place the melody, could not place nothing. There's just nothing of it I could place. But it was so loud that I thought other people would have been up and looking out their windows or having a look outside to see where this music was coming from. Not a soul was out looking, not a window was open to see where it was coming from. And my partner at the time says he couldn't hear it at all. He could hear nothing, but it was so loud. It's
almost like you heard and experienced a memory of music. So if he couldn't hear it, you know, just one kind of exploration of it. would be that you were hearing some kind of memory of that music in that space. When you had that 2-hour experience where you kind of lost a couple of hours in or weren't aware of what happened in those couple of hours, do you remember anything about that? I think you said you were looking out the window at the time. Did you see anything out of the window?
Nope.
Nothing.
Nope. Nothing. I think I was like trying to remember the music at the time, or kind of having it in the back of my head, trying to think about what it was. But again, like I was up there for apparently about 2 hours, and I thought only about 5 minutes would have passed.
Did you wake up from a sleep that you'd kind of gone into a meditative sleep or anything like that, or were you still standing up and then just went downstairs? And it might be hard to remember now.
No, I was upstairs. The only reason why I actually realized that what I was looking outside was because my partner came up and he was like, "Are you all right? He's been up here for 2 hours."
And were you still standing?
Yeah, in the same place where I heard the music as well.
This is so interesting, isn't it? So, two things really. The sense of longing to go with them. Did you get a sense of what form that would take? As in, what did you feel would need to happen in order for you to go with them?
I honestly, I'd probably just to accept that I'd be going with them. Yeah, I don't know what would have happened if I had just accepted and said yes, okay. I honestly don't know. I don't know what would have happened at all.
Did you get a sense of what they might look like, or what they were like? Not necessarily even visually, but just energy-wise.
They were very powerful. I don't think I was meant to hear that music.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I was meant to hear that. And when they realized that I could hear it, they decided to do that. That's what I get the sense of. I get the sense of that whatever they were doing. Oh, apparently they did use to dance on certain celebration days on that hill, on that little mound. Yeah, so I don't think I was meant to hear that music.
Did you recognize it at a certain point within yourself? Was it something that sounded or seemed familiar to you?
No. Like I said, I can't remember any. I can't remember the melody or anything like that.
No, not
what
the
made
note,
me,
but more
no,
the experience.
the idea of it. No,
Yeah.
no, I've never had anything like that happen. Like I said, I've had other sort of various other experiences before of different things, but nothing in that with that kind of emotional intensity.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't remember ever hearing fairy music before. Yeah, I just can't. I can't link it to anything else at all in my life.
Did you ever feel able to call on any other beings or energies for protection at that time?
No, like I said, I hadn't been doing any kind of paganism or anything like that for a while, and I basically walk two worlds in this because I am extremely cynical when it comes to. I always look for the most mundane answer first, always, whatever, even if it takes me a while to find the most mundane answer. I'm not just going to go, oh, it's a ghost. It's to me, it's like, right, there's something wrong with the house. I have to find out. That kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I could find no reason why that music was so loud, and why my partner just couldn't hear it.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's no way nobody else can hear this. There's no way. And that's kind of what made me think what it was, is that, there's no, I can't be the only one that's hearing this unless it's something else, So yeah, I can't place any of it.
Yeah.
The only reason why I really realized what it was because if nobody else could hear it, and there was no sign of anybody even peeking through their windows or anything like that.
No.
Nothing. That's the only thing that I could think it was, and it did last for quite a while. The music.
How long do you think it lasted?
It lasted for at least half an hour, to an hour.
Did you get a sense of whether it was kind of major or minor notes? Chords? Is it chords, notes?
I want to say major, but I'm only picking like I could pick up on notes being played, but I couldn't pick up what note,
No.
because I'm really bad at music. I can't pick up what that note was. I couldn't pick up anything else, but I think it was the notes that I heard, the notes I was picking up was major chords.
Okay.
But I couldn't pick up any minor but I knew it was there.
Yeah. Did you say you were putting your daughter to bed at the time as well?
No, I was I think I was just upstairs tidying a room, and I opened the window.
Okay.
The window was open already. Sorry. So I was, but I was but I remember looking out the window and then just hearing that music.
Yeah. Do you remember having any experiences as a child?
Well, the funny thing is, where I come from in Ireland, it was a big like housing project that was meant to be started in the 60s, but it didn't pan out properly. So all around me, well, I was in like a housing estate, and there was a few housing estates around the place as well. But all around us was just fields. And I didn't realize this until when I was much older, is that there was a tree out the back of my mum, not out in my mum's garden, but out the back in the field behind my mum's house. And it's a thorn tree in the middle of a field, and it's the only tree in the middle of the field. And I didn't realize until much later that I realized, oh yeah, that's a fairy tree.
It's a hawthorn.
Hawthorn. I think it's actually blackthorn.
Oh, it's blackthorn, right?
I think so. But when I realized that, I actually went, because at the time I was very much into paganism and stuff like that. So I went and tried to take a branch from the tree and put it onto like a broom, essentially, that I was making. I was out of oak. But I wanted to use like, tree wood from certain trees. So I went and I gave an offering, and I took a branch from the tree, and then as I was kind of back, a thorn went straight in. It was almost like, it felt like it touched the bone. Yeah. Into my thing, and I pulled the thorn out, and my thumb was bleeding. I didn't get any, like a lot of people say they get, like when that happens, they get like infections and stuff.
Yeah.
I never got an infection, which at the time I just thought, well, maybe that's me. They liked the offering, but then they had to try to remind me that, hawthorns and stuff, they require like a blood sacrifice.
Yeah.
So not just like a milk and honey would probably be for the fairies that would be associated with the tree. But if you want to take anything from the tree itself, you have to give like a blood sacrifice. But I think whatever, they were quite happy with the offering that I gave. I think it was just like a gemstone and a few other things. So yeah, I took that back and I used it in the thing. But also where I live, where my mum lives, there's a lot of like really interesting history. There's a Viking burial mound on the school, which is about a 5-minute walk. And that's on top of a hill. In the other direction, about a 10-20-minute walk, there is another rath. It's a very, very early Christian rath. And it's right beside the church there. Again, and then there's like 10-minute walk from my mum's house. There used to be a rath. It's built on the houses now there as well. There's a lot of marshlands about the place, and there's a road called the Bluestone Road, and it has a lot of really interesting history. Apparently there used to be a giant blue stone. Yeah, I think you understand whenever I said Bluestone Road, you understand where I was going with this. Apparently there was a giant blue stone near the very early Christian rath, which history says that you could eat your dinner off. So that says to me that it might be, one of those dolums where the tops of the dolum, or the legs of the dolum, are quite short and stubby. Might be one of them. But there used to be like a group called Hearts of Oak and Steel that were almost like a precursor to the IRA. This was in the 17th century.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. Yeah, they did some crime there. I can't remember what it was. And there was 3 of the men were hung, and they were buried some haphazardly somewhere, but people were trying to like dig up the bodies to bury them in a church. So what the authorities did was they dug them up and put them at the crossroads and put the big blue stone on top of them. So there's somewhere there. Jeez. There is.
So they moved the stone as well?
Yes, they moved the stone. There is also, before I even knew that, driving down that road, you can tell that it's ancient farmland. Basically, not ancient farmland, but you can tell that there's an energy there. Like, apparently there used to be like a portal tomb, like Newgrange.
Really?
There,
wow.
but nobody knows where it is. Nobody's
where it is.
yeah, nobody knows
Gosh.
where it is or where it would be at all.
So it's really potent landscape. Have you still got the broom that you made?
It's in my mum's house.
I would maybe you could get a hold of that and bring it to where you are now and use that in some form of ritual. Just wondering whether you think these experiences were tied into having taken the branch. How did you remove the branch from the tree?
Yeah, so I just cut it whatever. I can't even remember, to be honest, but I just cut it whatever I had. I wouldn't have a special knife or anything to cut it with.
Yeah.
Like my witchcraft by then, or my paganism by then, became very practical, you know.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I mean, I was always into folklore and stuff like that, but more into the myths and legends really than folklore. And since this has happened, like my interest in folklore has blown up.
As a child, did you ever play around the hawthorn tree or have any memories of connecting with other energies, as a young child?
Well, funny enough, I remember when I was younger, I was a bit older by then. It was about, say, maybe 11, 12. A friend of mine went for a walk and we went into that field, and I just told a story because I used to love telling stories when I was younger. I said, this tree is actually a tree of another dimension, and if you go around it 3 times, you'll end up in another dimension. And we did it with my friend, and I said, see, no way you can see me now. That's only because we can see each other through the portal. That was me whenever I was younger, not really recognizing it as a fairy tree yet. I mean, where we were, it was a lovely area to grow up because we were basically like the Secret Seven, and anybody there, or the Famous Five, because there were so many fields around us. We could just take ourselves off for a walk, grab a potato, and go and cook our potatoes in a field, and nobody really said anything. We made huts in like on the side of fields and stuff. And the farmers didn't mind, they'd know that we were just sitting there, we weren't doing anything wrong.
Making
with
dens.
Little wooded areas. Loved making dens. I mean, there was like chestnut trees, there was willow trees, there was trees that you could climb and get berries from and stuff like that we could have eaten as well. So we could have just stayed out all day and all night, and then come home whenever somebody wanted us for a tea. But yeah,
what's your feeling on the whole UFO thing that's going on? What's your relationship with that?
Right. I think, because I whenever I was younger, my mum and dad were really into like all this. If it had Star in the name, we watched it, right? So it was Star Trek, Star Wars, Stargate, Battlestar Galactica. We watched it all. So I have a love for sci-fi. But because obviously, when you're going to be a pagan, and at the time it was going from the switch over from just reading books into the internet. I did look into, there's a lot of like crossover with different sort of esoteric occult mythology stuff with the sci-fi group. So I just had a look to see what they were doing. And there does seem to be a lot of people who kind of think that fairies are UFOs. And I can understand why that's, because why that happens, because a lot of the things that comes out in the UFO folklore, I'll call it folklore because obviously we don't know. We don't actually know. So what comes out in the UFO folklore kind of does mirror, because you've got like changelings in folklore, and in UFO abductees who are told they have to look after certain types of children. The only thing I could say is that the energy is completely different.
The vibe of the aliens. Not that I've had an alien experience.
I've had an alien experience.
You have.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me about that.
I was in my room. I think I was about maybe 17, 18 at the time, and I just needed to go to bed. It was, I think it was a Saturday, and I was doing work for college, and I was like, I just need to go to bed in the middle of the day. Went to bed. A little black cat who used to love me and would sleep beside me. So she jumped up and lay on my feet, and I fell asleep. I woke up, couldn't move. I just seen these 3 beings run into my room from the window. I couldn't even see them. I couldn't look at the window, so I just seen them run in. But that's where I think they came from. Little grey, the little grey ones with the big eyes.
Yeah.
And I was just like staring at them, like, oh my God, but I couldn't move. And 3 of them, one of them ran to the other side of the room. It was either 3 or 4 actually. I'm pretty sure there was 3, but there may have been an extra one. I'm not sure. 2 of them went around my TV and my VCR and were poking at it. for some reason. And I tried to kick the cat to see, like, is this real?
Yeah.
And I tried to kick the cat, and it was as if she was frozen because she was moving. No, but where, like, if you like nudge something, it has that fluid sort of element to it.
Yeah.
She didn't have that fluid element, so it was like as if she was stiff as a board.
Oh my goodness.
And as soon as I did that, one of them turned around, so whispered something, and it was almost like that kind of noise. And another one came over and raised his hand in front of me, and I fell back down to sleep.
Oh God, that is scary. That's scary. So he whispered to you, or whispered to the other?
Whispered to the other one, as if to say, she's actually not fully asleep. Like as if you're being put under by an anesthetic, and the anesthesia says, "Oh shit, she's not asleep." That kind of thing.
Don't you think that this might have something to do with your experience?
What I think is that aliens are physical beings, but they've learned to use other dimensions to cross into different worlds. Because I think it was one of my sci-fi friends who also had a fairy experience, actually says that even by the speed of light, it could take you billions of years to get to another planet. The only way we can do it is by using wormholes. So I think that they maybe even be going beyond that as well.
Consciousness is infinite, and so you don't need to work within the realms of our understanding of science. And of course, we're only human as well. We're only human here, and we're only working.
Not unless you want to bring your physical being with you. Unless, because I genuinely think that they bring their physical beings with them. I think they are a physical being like us, only on another planet, who have indeed learned to use either wormholes or sitting through other dimensions in order to bring their whatever technology they've used, they can bring their physical being to another place. But the only thing I can say is that the energy is much more intense. Their energy it's much more physical.
Okay.
It's much more intense. It's almost like as if the TARDIS, I don't want to say it sounds like the TARDIS, but the way it has that sort of weird kind of noise.
Yeah.
It was like as if somebody turned that up, and it was like vibrating your body. So it is. This is why I think, because there is a lot of people who have genuine physical contact. I don't want to say genuine physical contact, but their experiences are genuinely sort of
absolutely.
And the flip side to that, the fairy energy is much more familiar and much more gentle. You could walk past a fairy and you wouldn't even notice if you wanted to pretend it was human for a day, you wouldn't even notice. They can mask their own energy or just make it natural. Does that make sense? They just make their energy much more natural, that you could stumble upon them and you wouldn't even know. There's that. If you stumble upon them and you don't know, it's much more ethereal. And that's in my opinion anyway. It's a bit more ethereal than just that intense.
Alien energy definitely does feel very different to fairy energy.
I mean, you can understand from a physical folklore point of view that, forests were our dangerous spot, and now that, forests aren't our idea of the unknown and danger, that it's become space. And aliens have taken over the space that fairies would have taken over. But I can understand, from somebody who maybe studies folklore from a very distance.
Tying the evidence together, and
I do understand as well how a lot of people in the UFO circle might confuse the two, especially if you're not used to working with energies at all. Even a fairy energy is going to be alien to you. Absolutely,
that is true.
Because I remember someone saying, and I think it is a semi-famous case of somebody saying they've seen things like gnomes, and then they were saying all these fairies are just aliens, and I was like, no.
Yeah, and this is the thing, and we're all still exploring together, so it's really tricky.
There's a point that's just jumped in my mind. There's hills near here. They've always been a hot spot for both fairy and UFO sightings.
Oh, well, I tell you what, I've just been finding out more about lately is that these supernatural encounters of all sorts happen on fault lines, and of course on hills it's often that there's a fault line there, which is why the hill is there in the first place. It was Where Did the Road Go? I don't know if you ever listened to that. It was really good, and they were interviewing the Snake Brothers, so they were talking about places like Loch Ness and other places where there've been lots of sightings. You often get bright lights, orb sightings, UFO sightings, fairy sightings, Sasquatch, all of those kind of phenomena along fault lines, and that Loch Lomond is also the site of a fault line. So they think that in these places, for some reason, something to do with the Earth's magnetism, whether it's something else about the Earth's energy in those places that we don't yet know about, it seems to provide a portal for things to come in and out of. And of course, burial chambers and raths and dolmens often appear along these lines too.
I remember one time, my mum was actually there at the time, is that we were coming back from the shopping centre in where my mum lives, and there's a long straight road. And as we were driving along this road, the moon was out. But as we were driving along this road, whatever atmosphere is there, it looked like we were driving onto the moon. The moon got that big. There was drivers even in front of us slamming on their brakes because it looked like you're about to drive onto the moon.
Wow.
Whatever the atmosphere was at that time. Yeah. I think that was around about Mabon time. If I remember it was like, it must have been summertime roundabout. It was years and years ago. But somebody else has recently said that there's a couple of stones down that road as well, where apparently a lot of people went to clean. Now these stones, they don't look like, standing stones. They're not flat. They're not tall. But they do kind of look out of place where they are, like as if, why somebody put a load of stones there,
Yeah.
So, and apparently, a lot of locals would have went down to clean the stones and stuff. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it. And again, that's actually going towards the Viking burial ground beside the school.
Yeah. So it could have been.
Yeah. And there's always the tale that nobody's really put together yet. But me and my friend were walking down near the marshlands one day near the place. It's only like a field or two, of marsh sort of area. Mm-hmm. And we seen this figure in a blue shroud just kind of like float past above the trees. And and we just kind of looked at each other and said, did you see that blue thing? He didn't see the figure, he just seen something blue kind of floated past. And since then, he says like a load of other his friends have come out and said that they've seen something blue float around the top of houses. So there might be something there, and gosh knows what it is. To me, it was like full-blown figure in a shroud.
It seems like there's some kind of portal going on there. There's just so much going on, isn't there? With the moon, was it the moon itself, or was it really bright light?
Oh, it was the moon. It was the moon itself.
Yeah.
The moon, basically, it was positioned right in front of the road. And as you were driving up to it, it just, honestly, drivers in front of us were just slamming on the brakes because it was just, it just looked so big. It looked like you were about to drive onto it. Yeah. So it was mad.
It's an incredible sight. I mean, some of the supermoons, I wonder if that sort of placement of it is why you had all those stones there in the Viking burial in the first place. This might be something that would happen from time to time in that area, where you would get this effect of the moon and the land meeting. Stones could have been denoting a procession way towards that. Who knows? But it's so interesting to think about that.
Would you like to hear my friends?
Yes, please.
My friends, right. Now my friends is much more interesting than mine. But I can't really answer any questions on it, unfortunately. He was telling me one night he went to the forest with a scout group, because it's a very popular place for scouts. And him and his mate woke up in the middle of the night and they decided to sneak out, when everybody else was asleep. And they said when they got into the forest part, they heard music and decided to figure out what this music was, see if there was a party. I think they were only about 11 or 12 at the time.
Yeah.
They said they were looking everywhere for this, and they got completely lost, still trying to follow the music. They said they eventually found it, and they said that there were these small-looking children, all with long hair and wearing white, dancing around a tree.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And they were trying to get closer, and as they got closer, they must have made a noise or something, because they turned, all the people that were around the tree turned around, and they had black eyes, and they started making this, noise, and he said they just woke up back in their tents.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, and he says he asked his friend about it, did this happen? And his friend said yeah, and he said he just chalks it. He says because he's very much into sci-fi. He said he kind of chalks it down either to his friend keeping him going, egging him on about it, going, oh yeah, that happened to me too.
Okay.
But his friend, he said his friend is just very yeah, and they both went looking for the tree and everything. They said they think they found the place where it was, but there wasn't even a tree there.
Oh, yeah. The children, were they boys and girls that were dancing around the tree?
Yeah, I think so. I think he said the main one that turned around was long haired, looked like a girl in just white.
What kind of sound did they make?
I don't know. I can't answer your question on that because it's not something. But
is his sense that they lost some time, or did he not really consider that?
I don't think they really considered that. Because he says that they were both quite young at the time as well. So they just were going out wanting to go around Tunnymore Forest at night time, for the crack.
Yeah.
Teenagers that go down there and play a bit of music at night time, and lovely rivers and stuff. Such a beautiful place. There's a definite ancient energy there.
Yeah. Oh, it's been really nice to talk to you as well.
And you too as well.
Time to
We heard that initially the event took place at twilight, a liminal space which often sets the scene for these experiences, a space between the worlds where otherworldly beings and humans appear to be able to commune with greater ease. This feeling of yearning is not uncommon in association with fairies. Our guest felt a strong pull to go with them from this earthly plane, which was a very frightening experience. That indescribable longing, it feels innate within us. It's as if it's another sense that we're not fully attuned to experiencing in the material world, an extra sense, like something that needs to be quenched, or a hunger. It takes over her physical body. It will not be ignored. It may fade away, but it would always return. There's a story in Lady Wilde and William Robert Wilde's collected folklore from the 19th century, Ancient Legends, Mystic Charms and Superstitions of Ireland. This story takes place around 1790. A young man around that time was said to have had the evil eye, that he could make himself loved and followed by any girl he liked. While travelling far from home, he passes by a farmhouse, where he fixes his eye on the farmer's young daughter, who is alone at home and refuses him entry. As he leaves, the girl feels compelled to go with him, and is almost away with him before a maid finds and undoes some knot magic, and her father manages to bring her back. When questioned, she said that she felt herself drawn by an invisible force to follow the young stranger wherever he might lead, and that she would have followed him through the world, for her life seemed to be bound up with his. She had no will to resist, and was conscious of nothing else but his presence. Now, as in this story, where there may be enchantment, I believe there is always a means of breaking the spell. While we can seek advice, there are no clear paths. We don't have a definitive handbook that can advise on relationships with all otherworldly beings, though listening to each other's experiences aids greatly. We just have to insist that we remain tethered to this world, seek the help of friends and protectors, and trust our instincts. Our guest is finding her way with this, and we can aid, using our own consciousness to hold an intention that she identifies exactly the right solution for her situation. Thank you for joining me on another exploration of the other worlds. Don't forget there's also a bonus episode on Patreon. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this and to receive your messages, so please get in touch at scarletofthefae.com and tweet me at _remain_curious. If you've enjoyed the episode, please like, rate and subscribe, and do consider sharing with a friend. A big thank you to our guest for sharing her experiences. This project is about breaking the taboo around speaking about these occurrences, so if these sorts of eerie happenings feel completely alien and off the scale, then I wonder if that's because we're just not used to hearing about them. Certainly I can say that people hardly ever feel safe to discuss them without being ridiculed or completely misunderstood. So if you've had an experience like this, then I hope it helps to hear this episode. And if you hadn't considered it a possibility, then I hope you feel able to extend your sense of awareness about this mysterious universe. Wherever you are with this right now, keep an open mind and an open heart, and always remain curious.